Check. 1, 2, 3.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you very much for being here tonight. My name is Wayne McDonald. I'm the chairman of the Christie campaign here in New Hampshire, and we're delighted to see such a great crowd in this very New Hampshire-like setting. This is our 36th town hall in New Hampshire. As Governor Christie may tell you before the evening's over, we've done more town halls than anyone else, and nobody's going to catch us in this campaign. I had to apologize for stealing his thunder, but he's got so much good material, he won't run out of it. It's also his 49th day here in New Hampshire this year, and he's got many, many more days he's going to be spending here, meeting with a lot of folks just like you in this room. At this time, I'd like to ask Major Bob Krieger of the Merrimack County Sheriff's Department to come forward for the purposes of the Pledge of Allegiance. Technical difficulties.
There is a September 11th flag on that wall facing right there, the firemen. I'm not going to use the mic. I think we all know the words. You ready? Thank you very much.
Ladies and gentlemen, I'm Scott Hilliard. I'm the Merrimack County Sheriff, and it is my distinct pleasure to introduce our guest here tonight. Before I do that, I'd just like to say a few words. I stand here in support of him. He is a great man. He is exactly what this country needs. We need leadership. I don't know about you, but if you watch the news, lately things are a little bit scary in this world. We have a president who is a failure. I'll say it. And I think we need somebody who has an experienced track record and leadership ability to see this country is safe. And with him tonight is his lovely wife, the First Lady of New Jersey, Mary Pat. My best, Governor Christie.
All right, all right. Well, thank you all for being here. I appreciate it very much. Appreciate you taking the time. I want to thank Wayne, the chairman of my campaign here in New Hampshire. I appreciate all the hard work that he's put in and all the hard work that lots of the rest of you have put in as well. And we're just starting. 68 days to go, not that I'm counting, but 68 days to go till the New Hampshire primary. And I will tell you that you and I in this room all know, all understand that a couple of weeks ago this campaign changed dramatically. We were talking about lots of important issues, there's no question. You know, the crisis in student debt in this country, how we have to get our economy moving again, simplify our tax system, help to create American jobs, talking about the heroin crisis, not only here in New Hampshire but around the country. All those things are extraordinarily important issues, and lots of other ones. The way our veterans are treated in this country, the failure of the VA and how they're letting down veterans and their families. Those are all things that we should address and do address in our campaign and in real detail. But a few weeks ago, the entire campaign changed because the single most important responsibility of the President of the United States, in my opinion, is to protect the safety and the security of the American people. And listen, this isn't theoretical for me. You know, there are lots of folks in this race, well-intentioned people, who honestly just don't have the first idea of what this means, of how to do it, and how hard it is, and how difficult the decisions are, and how complicated the work is. But Tom Colantuono is here tonight. He was the United States Attorney here in New Hampshire and served with me when I was the United States Attorney in New Jersey. And we were given a unique task at a unique time in this country's history. People have asked me a lot in the last few weeks, well, why, Governor, do you think this is the most important issue now? And the way to answer that is I want you all to remember, I want you to force yourselves to take your mindset back to the way you felt on September 12th, September 13th, September 14th, September 15th of 2001. Now remember what it was like in our country in those days afterwards. Airlines were not flying. The stock exchange was closed. Most businesses were closed. There were no sporting events, professional or youth sports happening in the country. Everything that makes this country's heartbeat stopped because the American people felt at risk. We had been attacked, and 3,000 of our people had been killed. Innocent folks who had just gone to work that day or gotten on an airplane to go someplace else were killed by people who killed them for two reasons. One, because they hate Americans, and two, because they want to impose their way of life on us. And when people ask me, well, why is this now the most important issue? I point them back to those days. Because nothing else works if that doesn't work, everybody. Nothing else works. If you are afraid to come out of your home, if you are afraid for the safety of your loved ones, if you fear for your ability to do your job and conduct your business, if you're too afraid to go to a Friday night football game or a Saturday afternoon baseball game at Fenway Park or Shea Stadium back then, where I used to go, if you're too afraid to do that, nothing else works. And so what the attacks in Paris reminded America 14 years later is what's at stake. Now, I understand new is cool, right? Everything that's new is cool. It's shiny, it's new, it's untarnished, it's fun. New is great. New is really, not only just fun, but exciting. We see something new, we immediately respond to that. You respond kind of in an emotional way to it. New really is fabulous until you need experience. Then all of a sudden, you look at that new thing and you say, I wish it had a little tarnish on it. That would show me it's been through some things. I wish it was bent and bruised a little bit. Because if it was, I would have known that new thing has gotten in some fights and come out the other side. The new thing looked good at first, but when it didn't know how to get out of its own way, when it didn't know how to protect me, new isn't great. In fact, it's scary. We've watched new for the last 7 years. We've watched new for the last 7 years. I want to remind all of you, I want to remind you that 4 years before we elected Barack Obama President of the United States, he was voting present in the Illinois state legislature. 4 years later, we made him President of the United States. And it was exciting for lots of folks in this country. It was new, it was different, it was exciting. But now we've seen what it's wrought. See, you can't put someone behind that desk who's never made a decision before. Just can't. Can't put someone behind that desk who's just had to argue about something in the subcommittee in the basement on Capitol Hill. That's important work. But it's not the work of somebody who's supposed to be President of the United States. And we've had a lot of fun so far this year. This campaign's been fun. It's had its moments of real entertainment. I've engaged in some of that entertainment. It's fun. That's good. That's okay. Guess what, everybody? It's game time now. It's game time now. The world is threatening us. It's knocking on our door. And terrorists around the world never make a bigger statement than they make when they kill Americans. They never make a bigger statement than when they attack the symbols of our country. And I think we've gotten complacent. And the evidence of that is today, ironically, the NSA program of collecting metadata to try to connect the dots and prevent terrorist attacks stops today. It stopped at midnight today. And that means that we're less prepared to be able to intercept those attacks before they happen. See, when Tom and I got called to the White House in 2002, the President of the United States said to all of his U.S. attorneys, listen, guys, it's not good enough anymore to catch the bad guys after they commit the crime. Because in terrorism, after they commit the crime, we got a lot of dead bodies. Not good enough anymore. You have to catch them before they commit the crime. And we had a president, an attorney general, and a Congress that gave us the tools to do that. And now you've got people in the political process, either for their own political gain or because somehow they got amnesia, who are taking those tools away at a moment that's most dangerous. Now, of course, when they did this summer, they didn't know because they've never been there. That's why they made those votes in Congress. That's why this president signed it, because they've never been there. Let me tell you, I've been there. On September 10th, 2001, I got the call from the White House offering me the job as U.S. Attorney in New Jersey. September 10th, 2001. The next day, Mary Pat did what she always did. She got up earlier than me, went to work earlier than me, 6 o'clock in the morning, left the house, got in the car, drove to the train station, took the train to the PATH station, took the PATH train to the World Trade Center, walked through the World Trade Center at about 7:30 in the morning on September 11th, and went to her office 2 blocks from World Trade Center. And I was getting a new job, so I took the day off. And I took our 2 oldest children, who were then 8 and 5, to school. And when I got home, I turned on the television set, and the first building was on fire. And I called her. I said, what's going on? And she said, oh, they just said it's a commuter plane that flew into the building. It's not that big a deal. We're working. Here are the fire trucks. Everything's fine. We started talking about my day, what her day was going to be like, how the kids were in the morning, all the rest of that. And while we're on the phone, the second plane hit the second building. And she told me, they're telling me I got to evacuate to the basement. I'll call you when I can. 5.5 hours went by. When I was trying to reach her, both buildings fell. There were all kinds of reports. Now the plane hit the Pentagon. Now another plane went down in an open field in Shanksville, Pennsylvania. 3,000 people. And I didn't know where my wife was. And I couldn't find her. And I will tell you that the things that ran through my mind as each of those hours passed was, what was I going to do without my best friend? What was I going to tell our children when they came home from school about their mother? And what kind of single parent could I be? It was not theoretical to me. The school called and told us that because so many of the children in our school had parents who worked in Manhattan, that they had told the children about the attack. And so that we needed to be ready to talk to them about their parents who were in New York when they got home from school. And so it was minutes away from me having to leave to go pick them up. And I got one of the best phone calls I've ever gotten in my life. Mary Pat was on the other end of the phone. And I don't want you to hold this against her, but she was calling from a bar. She was. Now she tells me it was the only place she could find an operating payphone at that time in New York City, and used her Sprint calling card, which got routed through Kansas City, which is the only reason she could make the call. But I could have cared less. She was alive, and we were going to get her home. And when she got home that night, we got a call from a neighbor of ours, a woman whose husband had recently lost his job. And he worked in the same business as Mary Pat, so we'd go to the same parish. And he asked Mary Pat at church one Sunday, can you help me find a new job? So Mary Pat took his resumes and sent them around to some folks, and he got a new job at a place called Euro Brokers. And it was on the 44th floor of World Trade Center 2. And she called and she said to Mary Pat, "Did you see Frank? Did you see him anywhere?" And of course she hadn't. And she said what so many loved ones said that night. She said, "I'm sure he's fine. I'm sure he's in a hospital somewhere, and he just can't get to me. I'm sure they're taking care of him." Well, Frank never came home. He was killed in the Trade Center that day, and the gym at our parish is now named after him. Later that night, we heard from our oldest son's best friend. His mom called because her husband and this young man's father worked at Cantor Fitzgerald, the very top of World Trade Center 1. No one made it out of Cantor Fitzgerald who was there at work that day. And it's been 14 years now. That young man's like a part of our family. And since Facebook started, every year on his father's birthday, he posts on his Facebook page a picture of his dad, and he said, "Dad, we'll never forget you." What I fear in this country is that we're forgetting his father. Easy for us to forget his father. Easy for the president to say some of the awful things he's been saying in the last couple of weeks, because he doesn't have to look in those eyes. It's not theoretical for me. We've lived it. We've gone to the funerals. We've watched the orphans grow up. President criticized me last week from overseas. He said, "Oh, some tough guys in this race are afraid of widows and orphans." Now, you know, I don't like to be firing back at the President of the United States unless I absolutely have to. But I'll tell you this. You know the widows and orphans I care about? Those people who live in my state, who've been widows and orphans for 14 years now. And I want to make sure that we never create another generation of those widows and orphans. So before we're going to start to let Syrian refugees in this country, who the FBI director himself says can't be vetted, I'm going to put the widows and orphans and the citizens of this country first, and the President of the United States can play to his crowd at the United Nations. See, but he wouldn't have the first idea about this. Because when Tom and I were doing what we were doing in the Justice Department, keeping America safe, he was voting present in the Illinois State Legislature. And today, when ISIS threatens American lives and other lives around the world, he is overseas saying that the foreign policy imperative of America today is climate change. Well, let me tell you something, everybody. No matter how it is you feel about climate change, no matter how you feel about it, no one can tell me that climate change is the foreign policy imperative in a world where Parisians who are just going to a concert, going out to dinner with their loved ones on a Friday night are murdered in cold blood. No one can tell me that the president should be overseas trying to put together a coalition to fight climate change. He should stand up, be a real leader, and put together a coalition to destroy ISIS. That's what he should be spending his time doing. By the way, don't for a second think that his second mate is any better. Don't think for a minute the woman who is the architect of this foreign policy, who came up with the reset button for Russia, who called Assad a reformer, who said that if we only got rid of Mubarak in Egypt and Gaddafi in Libya, that the Middle East would be stable. Don't think that America will be any safer or any better if we promote Hillary Clinton to be the next president of the United States. See, here's the bottom line. Bottom line is that as Republicans, as Americans, we better put somebody on that stage next September across from Hillary Clinton who can hold her to account for the record that she and the president have created over the last 7 years, who can prosecute the case against them and their vision for the United States. That's what we better do. And everybody, that is not for the faint of heart. That's not for somebody who hasn't been tested. That's not for somebody who has not been put through the mill by the media already. That's not for somebody who hasn't governed a state like mine that I lovingly call unruly. You need to be tested and ready to stand on that stage with Hillary Clinton, or the Clintons, and that machine will run you over. This is not the time for amateur hour. This is not the time to promote some youngster to stand on that stage who says, gee whiz, isn't it great to be here? That's not what we need, everybody. And we don't need somebody who's yesterday. We need somebody who's tested and mature and ready for tomorrow, and who is going to make one thing very plain. Hillary Clinton should never get within 10 miles of the White House again, and I am the person who's going to make sure she does not. All right, so now we get to the fun part of this program, which is, for the rest of the time that we're here tonight, you get to ask me questions, I get to answer. There is really only one rule in my town hall meetings. Now, I know there are some town hall meetings that have been held in this state by some candidates where you have to write down your questions when you walk in, and you have to hand in your questions to members of the staff, and then the staff gets to read them and decide which ones the candidate likes the most, and then we pretend that we're actually having real human interaction. Now, it would be really, really rude of me to say who that candidate is, but her initials are Hillary Rodham Clinton. So tonight, the only rule is you raise your hand and I call on you. I do not respond to yelled out questions. Here's why. It's not because I'm governor of New Jersey. It's not because I'm running for president of the United States. It's because I am the father of 4. And this means that I have a finely tuned ability to ignore things that are yelled at me. And any of the parents out there, especially after coming off Thanksgiving weekend, you know that this is now honed to a perfection. After 2 kids came home from college to interact with the 2 who feel like they've been running the house by themselves since they've been gone, and the conflict that incurs is incredible. Finally, last night, as all of the madness was coming to an end, and my oldest son was screaming at my younger son because he wasn't doing his reading that his mother asked him to do. I said, could everyone lower their voices? I mean, that'll tell you what was going on in my house, man. When I'm the voice of reason, this is a moment. So you raise your hands and you ask the questions, I'll answer them. I'll just say one thing. Scott mentioned that the First Lady of New Jersey is here, and she is. I've spent more days in this campaign than any other candidate in New Hampshire. She has spent more days in this campaign than any other candidate but me in New Hampshire. And I'll tell you one quick story about that. We were staying at the Radisson in Manchester one night. We got up the next morning. I came down to the lobby, and Mary Pat went to go and get some coffee. And the manager of the hotel came over, and it was early on in the process, so he hadn't met me before, and he introduced himself, and we chatted for a couple of minutes, and he saw that I had walked down with Mary Pat and that she had gone off, and we got done talking. He walked away, and I stood there waiting for Mary Pat to come back. So he walked back over to me, and he said, I got to tell you something, Governor. There's a lot of different candidates coming in and out of here. Yeah, it tells you something about what you're just doing right now. I said, what's that? And he said, I think it's so nice. He said, you can just go to the car. He said, but you stayed here to wait for your young staffer to get her coffee and come back to you. True story. Knowing how quickly rumors can spread in a presidential campaign, I said to him, no, not a young staffer, that's my wife, I swear. I swear. The one I came down in the elevator with, that's my wife, I promise you. Now, Mary Pat loves when I tell that story because of the young staffer part of it. So I said to her, every time you come to a town hall meeting, I will end my presentation with that story if in return, you act like a young staffer and you hold my jacket when it's time to go to work. And you know what she said? She said, okay, so we're going to do it. So let's go. Let's get some questions done. All right, raise them up. Who's got them? Let's go. Yes, sir. And there's a microphone that's going to come to you so that everybody here can hear you.
I'm disabled. What happened before 9/11 about the other attacks? Nobody talks about those, okay? And it's not only the other thing. These people have been fighting with each other for thousands of years. And all our Congress thinks about is helping themselves. They don't give our military the right to do what has to be done. Their hands are tied. And our president stands there and he asks and tells who's doing our jobs. These men and women are in harm's way. Tell me what.
Well, thank you. Listen, we need to understand, and I see there's a World War II vet here who, on the way in, he said to me, and this is such a great New Hampshire thing to say to somebody. I walked in and he said, "You're campaigning better than anybody else so far." Right? I love this guy. So far. 68 days to go, boy. Keep it up, you know? Our world war is not going to look like his. It's not. Our world war is not going to look like his world war. Our world war is happening right now. And it's been happening. It's been happening since Al-Qaeda started to do their attacks at embassies overseas, attacking our ships, and it's been going on. And this president got into office and decided that American inaction was always better than American action. This is the guiding principle of this administration. Uses some foul language, so I'm not going to use the entire quote as it's supposed to be. But the guiding principle of the Obama administration is don't do the stupid stuff. And the president has defined anything that involves military action as stupid stuff. And the rest of the world has listened. And they believe him. And so what has he done? He's made America weaker. He's made America timid. That's the way we're viewed around the world now. We're viewed as a country that doesn't stand up for the things that we used to stand up for. We're viewed as a nation under this president that will not be a reliable ally and not be an able adversary. And he's done it under the guise of don't do stupid stuff. You know, Mr. President, there are some times when you're President of the United States that you have to do unpopular things. There are some times that as President of the United States, your job isn't to follow polls, it's to change polls. It's to convince the American people that there's an imperative that needs to be met. In the years before World War II, popular opinion was no involvement in these foreign wars. Don't get involved with what's happening overseas. It's not our business. Let them tend to themselves. Slowly but surely, Franklin Roosevelt was trying to convince the American people that this was our problem. And as he started to make that progress, he got some help from the Japanese, who bombed Pearl Harbor and proved to us it was our problem. How much louder does Al-Qaeda and ISIS have to yell before this president understands this is our problem? This is our problem. How many more innocent people in Paris need to die before the president understands this is our problem? And how many more times do radical Islamic jihadists have to attack us before the president and Hillary Clinton are willing to say that we are being attacked by radical Islam? That's what it is, everybody. It's radical Islam. Now, in New Jersey, we have the second largest Muslim American population in America, behind Michigan. And the overwhelming majority of Muslim Americans in my state are good, hardworking, loyal Americans who believe deeply in our country. Many of them born here, some of them came here to have this way of life. They're not confused when you talk about radical Islamic jihadists. They know who they are, and they know you're not talking about them. They're the folks who are going to work every day, sending their kids off to school, making a living, paying their taxes, and worshiping peacefully. This would be just as bad as if it was radical Catholicism or radical Protestantism or radical Buddhism. That's not a war against those religions. It's a war against those who, let's be very clear about this, they are trying to take away from you your way of life and impose upon you their religious beliefs. That's not what America has ever stood for. In fact, that's what we've always stood against. I want everyone, whether you're a Catholic, whether you're a Protestant, whether you're a Buddhist, whether you're a Muslim, whether you're a Jew, no matter what your religious persuasion is, I want you to be able to pursue your religious beliefs as you see fit, as you want to do, without interference from the government, as long as you do it peacefully. This ridiculousness that we can't speak about this directly, that somehow this will offend people. You watch that Democratic debate, they were falling all over each other to try to figure out another euphemism for radical Islamic jihad. And what that does is it confuses people more because they don't know what the hell you're talking about. Let's just say it plain. And if we start saying those things plainly and directly, and we start to get our allies once again believing in the fact that America will stand with them, regardless of whether the polls go up or down. And our adversaries once again are taught the limits of our patience. America is a compassionate and patient country. But when you exceed the limits of our patience, the other side needs to understand that. There's been lots of things said about me, both before this campaign and since this campaign started. You've probably read and heard a lot of them. I wish you'd forget some of them. But here's the thing that's never been said about me, that I am misunderstood. No one ever says I'm misunderstood. And when I'm president of the United States, our allies will understand that they have a loyal president that they can count on, and our adversaries will understand the limits of our patience. I'll guarantee you that. Someone coming to you with a microphone, ma'am.
Hi, thank you.
Hi.
Do you have a long-term plan for the sustainability of Social Security?
What a fabulous question. Thank you. I do. And in fact, I'm the only person in this race who has any plan on Social Security. Back last April, the first speech I gave about national issues was on entitlement reform. And I remember the political advisors of mine at the time thought, you are crazy, man. You're going to start off this adventure with entitlement reform? But here's why. You all remember the bank robber Willie Sutton? They asked Willie Sutton one time, why do you rob banks? He says, that's where the money is, man. If you're going to run this nation, you better address where the money is. 71% of every dollar we spend today in the federal government that we raise through taxes and borrow goes to entitlements and debt service. 71 cents of every dollar. When John Kennedy was elected president in 1960, it was 26 cents of every dollar. Why did America grow from the 60s all the way through in the decades that follow? One of the reasons was America and their taxpayers and their government were investing in tomorrow. Everything was focused on technology and being on the cutting edge, on education, the race to space, the ability to be able to develop the next cutting edge cures and treatments of diseases were all happening in America. And the energy that created lit an economic engine that the world's never seen. Why are we doing what we're doing today? and 1.5% GDP growth, with jobs not building the way they should, with people not working. Well, so we're spending 71 cents of every dollar looking in the rearview mirror to pay for debts we ran up and to pay for entitlement programs where we broke our word, we lied to the American people, and we stole from them. That's what the government did. So yeah, I have a long-term plan. I have a 12-point plan on Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid, and Social Security disability insurance. And when I gave that speech in April, I said to the people at St. Anselm's, I said, let me tell you something. Social Security disability insurance is going broke in 2016. And if you're not careful, the president is going to steal from the Social Security retirement money to pay for the disability insurance money. People said I was being ridiculous, overreacting. Guess what just happened? When Congress made their deal, our Republican Congress made this deal with the President of the United States. They stole $150 billion from Social Security retirement and put it in Social Security disability. So when Harvard and Dartmouth says that Social Security is 7 to 8 years away from insolvency, it's now less than that because we stole $150 billion. We have to do a few things. On Social Security, we have to raise the retirement age. And here's why. It's a good thing. We're all living longer. It's a blessing. You know what? The average life expectancy now of a woman in America is 83. The average life expectancy of a man is 79. I see a few of you ladies smiling. I want to remind you that 10 years ago, you were 6 years ahead of us. Now you're only 4. We are gaining on you. And here's the really bad news, all right? The really bad news is that 4 years that you were expecting having off from us at the end, you may not get it. You may be stuck with us for your entire life. This may be it. Because medicine's gotten better, pharmacology has gotten better, and we're living longer lives. So let's acknowledge that. These programs were developed at a time when folks were dying in their early 60s. We're now living 15 to 20 years longer, and all that time is on retirement. So we need to do this. So I say let's raise the retirement age 2 years, and let's phase it in over 25 years. That means eligibility goes up 1 month a year for 25 years. Now be ready, because when I run against Hillary Clinton next fall, she will run ads and say, Governor Christie has a radical plan to throw grandma off the cliff. And there'll be an ad where grandma is going out of the wheelchair, over the cliff, and I'm behind her with an evil smile, picking her purse at the same time, okay? Get ready for that ad. I'm previewing for it already. Here's the problem. It takes 25 years for grandma to go off the cliff and hit bottom. That's the highest cliff I've ever seen in my life. The fact is that it won't affect anyone who's on Social Security now. It will barely affect anyone who's about to be on Social Security, but who it will affect are our children and grandchildren, and it should, because they're going to live even longer, and we've got to make this thing more solvent. Second, if you make over $200,000 a year in retirement, you've stopped working, you've got $200,000 in investment income coming to you every year. That means you've got at least $4 to $5 million saved in the bank liquid, aside from your home. Do you really need a Social Security check? I mean, is that really going to affect your lifestyle one way or another? You know, the answer is no. Now, I remember the first town hall meeting I did here was at a place called Shooter's Pub in Exeter. Now, you guys got the short end of the stick coming to the Loudon Fire Department. You should see me in a bar. I'm telling you, you get 1 or 2 drinks, I am charming. You'll win you over. Except for this one guy who, when I told him I wanted to means test Social Security, he stood up and he said, I want my money. It's my money, I want it. I said, well, all right, let me ask you a question. Are you going to make more than $200,000 a year in retirement? He said, no. And I said, well, you're getting your money then. Yeah, but anyway, everybody should get their money. Because it's not your money, it's our money. It's not an entitlement. It was an investment. And I said, I want to give you the bad news. There's no money there. The government's spent it all already. Remember back in 2000, Al Gore talked about the lockbox? Really memorable, right? You're trying to remember, do I remember Al Gore, or do I remember the guy who was playing Al Gore on Saturday Night Live saying lockbox? I don't remember which one I remember. I know I remember one of those. Doesn't matter for purposes of our conversation. You can remember either guy. Either the guy playing Gore or Gore, actually. There's nothing in the lockbox. It's a stack of IOUs. This is the argument I had with Governor Huckabee in the first debate. Governor Huckabee said, this is awful. The government is at fault here. Why should the people pay? I'm like, well, who's going to pay then? Right? Like, I mean, seriously, this reminds me of my mother, right? When I was growing up and I'd go shopping with my mother, she'd come into the room, who wants to go shopping with me? And of course, none of us wanted to go, right? So I go, all right, I'll go. So I'd go with my mother, and I'd go there and go into the store, and I'd see something that I wanted. I'm like, hey, Mom, I mean, I came shopping with you. Can I have that? And she's like, of course you can, Christopher. I'm like, yes. I was the smart guy who came. And she'd say, you absolutely can have that. She goes, it's all you have to do. Go home. She said, go in the backyard, pick the money off the money tree, and then take that money, bring it here, you can buy that. And I'm like, Mom, we don't have any money tree in the backyard. She goes, exactly. So I said to Huckabee, like, where's the money coming from, dude? Where's it coming from? Then he said in that first debate, and this is something that I think is still the most memorable moment of this campaign so far for me. They asked Governor Huckabee what was his solution to this problem. And he said, I have a tax plan that will help to save Social Security in this way because it will finally tax, and these are his words, not mine, pimps and prostitutes. Now, I got to tell you the truth. And I started thinking about running for president. I would imagine what it was like. I got to tell you, I never thought I'd be on national television in front of 24 million people and hear somebody talk about pimps and prostitutes. And that the pimps and the prostitutes were going to solve the Social Security problem. Now, in the last year and a half, I've been to 49 of our 50 states. 49 of the 50 states in the last year and a half. The only state unscathed is Alaska. It is still pure. I have not been there. But I will tell you this. I've seen 49 of 50 states. I see what's going on out there. I can guarantee you this. There are not enough pimps and prostitutes to fix the Social Security problem. So we need to means test it. And we need to do the same thing on Medicare. Raise the eligibility age 2 years, phase it in over 25, and if you're making over $200,000 in retirement income, instead of subsidizing your Medicare premium 75%, which we do now, we should only subsidize them 10%. So look at some subsidy, but not that big a subsidy, because you can afford to pay for your medical care. These are the realities we have to deal with now. Now, Mrs. Clinton will have a different idea. Here's what she'll say. She'll say, take the cap off the Social Security payroll tax and make those awful, despicable rich people pay more in taxes. We're saying the same thing. Except here's the thing that's different. Why would you give more money to the people who just lied to you and stole from you and think, this time they won't do it? Of course they will. Of course they will steal the money just like they did before. And then they'll come back to you for even more. So you got a choice in the race. I say take benefits away from people who have done the best and been the most fortunate, who don't need them. So we're there for people who do. She says, give me more money while you're working and trust me that I'll spend that money to take care of the people who really need it. Let me tell you something, everybody. When a liberal, tax-raising Democrat says, give me your money and trust me, grab your wallet and run for the door, man. Run for the door. So that's the choice that we've got. And there are 8 other points to the plan. Please go on the website and look at them. For fear of clouding the entire audience over, I'm not going to go over the other 8. But they're there. They've been scored by the Congressional Budget Office, and they save over $1 trillion over the next 10 years. It's real, and I'm the only person who's put a plan forward. It's a really important issue, because if we don't get that under control, we will never get our debt under control, and we will have people in this country who then will have to choose between rent and heat and food, even though they've worked their whole lives and paid into the system. That's not right, and we have to make sure it doesn't happen. So thanks for asking. Young man right there. He's going to get you a microphone.
Governor, in last week's debate, you stated in your home state of New Jersey, which is ranked 3rd in the country for solar power installations, a recent poll showed that 62% of Republicans strongly support allowing homeowners who use rooftop solar panels to receive credit on their energy bill for sending power back to the grid. But here in New Hampshire, we have a law that caps the so-called net metering so that more and more customers are unable to generate their own electricity. Do you think we should do more to allow families and businesses to generate their own electricity and send it back to the grid?
I think that New Hampshire should do what makes economic sense for New Hampshire, the way New Jersey has done things to make economic sense for New Jersey. Now, you have a lot of energy problems here in New Hampshire. The cost of energy here is much too high, and you need to get more energy into this state. And that's going to mean building pipelines. These are hard decisions that need to be made. But let me tell you something. I met with somebody last week who said that he looked at his mother's energy bill from 5 years ago and today, and that in 5 years, she used the same amount of energy in electricity in this particular month, and her bill is 50% higher today than it was 5 years ago. Now, that's awful, and we've got to do stuff to change that. Now, in New Jersey, this is what we've done. 53% of our electricity in New Jersey is generated by nuclear power. Now, if we can do it in New Jersey, you can do it anywhere in the country. We're the most densely populated state in America. And we have multiple nuclear reactors in New Jersey working safely, and they've been working safely for decades, and they account for more than 50%, 53% of electric generation in our state. We built pipelines in our state to take advantage of the Marcellus Shale in Pennsylvania and bring lower cost natural gas to New Jersey that has lowered our energy costs in New Jersey double digits in the last 3 years. We are, as you mentioned in the question, the third largest solar producing state in America. You're going to win a bet at some bar somewhere tonight on that one. Take it to the bank. The first two are Arizona and California. Easy. Give them those. Say, what's number 3? Man, you'll be 3-4 drinks in before they get to New Jersey. I guarantee you. I guarantee you. Why have we done it that way? We partnered with the private sector to make it affordable for people. And when they have an affordable option to use an alternative energy, and they get a benefit from it, like the net metering costs that you're talking about, this is a good thing for the state, and it's a good thing for the country. We shouldn't make decisions on this based upon some crazy environmental radical policy that says, oh, you know, like in New Jersey, like here in New Hampshire, we used to belong to something called the Regional Greenhouse Gas Initiative, right? All the northeastern states belong to it. And all it is a tax. It's another tax on your bill that you have to pay, and the money goes to the government says, and we're going to help to clean the environment for you. Yeah, exactly. We're the only northeastern state now that pulled out of it. I pulled out of it when I became governor. And you know what? We've already reached our clean air goals for 2020 in New Jersey, and we don't have to add a tax onto the people of our state to do it. So let's do things that are smart and make sense. And that's what we should be doing in New Hampshire and all the other states in the country. In Iowa, where I've spent some significant time of late, there's wind turbines everywhere. You drive through Iowa, you see wind turbines on the big open plains everywhere. If we put wind turbines in New Jersey, there would not only be dead birds, there might be dead people. In a densely populated state like ours, we're not putting wind turbines up on the ground, but solar panels on businesses, on parking garages, on homes. You see them all over the place in our state, and it's making a difference. So those are the kind of approaches we should take to it, and New Hampshire needs to make some hard decisions. Or that senior citizen, because the guy's mother's a senior, her electric bill of 50% is a huge tax on her, 10% a year. She's on a fixed income. So every dollar that goes up, she's got to take away from something else. And there's not a lot to go around. So I think New Hampshire's got some hard decisions to make, and you need to be able to keep those costs under control. We've made a lot of those decisions in New Jersey, and happy that we did. All right.
It's sort of similar. Do you believe that we should lift the ban on the export of American crude oil, and how would that impact national security as well as the economy?
I believe we should, because on American crude oil and natural gas, and I believe we should because we have found lots of new reserves of crude oil and natural gas that we never knew we had or could reach through the new drilling technologies and exploration technologies that we've developed in this country. And it not only will be good for American business, it'll be good for American geopolitical interests. Let's take Russia, for instance, who we're having some interesting times with at the moment. President Putin is a big exporter of energy to Western Europe. And the Western European governments are very dependent on Russian energy in order to run their electric plants, heat their homes. And so it makes it harder when we want to put even more aggressive sanctions on Russia to be able to really get them to stop the adventurism in Crimea and Ukraine and now what they're doing in Syria. A lot of our Western European allies say, easy for you to say, but how are we going to heat our homes in the winter? If what we should do is to set up a consortium with Canada and Mexico, with the enormous energy assets they have in Canada and in Mexico, with the United States, we could become a reliable, peaceful supplier of energy to Western Europe and give them even more incentive to be able to really crack down from a sanctions perspective on the instability that Russian adventurism creates. So I don't think it'll only be good for our economy, it'll be good also for our standing geopolitically around the world and allow us to be a peaceful partner with these folks so they're not being held hostage by Putin. And I think that's an important thing for us to consider in this equation as well. All of it's made possible by better American technology to find this energy in a safe and efficient way. And I think that allows us to do it. Before that, we didn't have the ability to do it. Now I think we do. All right? Yes, sir. Back.
Yes, my question is, I've voted Republican for the past 30 years because I'm a fiscal conservative, and I've figured I voted for Republicans because they've been the party that claims we're for smaller government or for lower taxes. Yet it seems like whether or not we have Republicans or Democrats in the White House or in the Congress, we have a government that continues to get bigger and more intrusive. We have a burdensome, complex income tax system. And of course, we have a national debt now that's nearly $20 trillion, which I don't know how the next generation is going to be able to pay that off. If you were the next president of the United States, how would you reverse that trend?
Well, first off, you have to actually show people that you're willing to make some of those hard choices. And every time you do, you're going to make someone angry. You know, my first year as governor, we cut 800 programs in the state budget in order to try to bring some fiscal sanity to the state. And let me tell you that anybody who tells you that, like, oh, we're going to eliminate fraud, waste, and abuse, and that's going to fix the problem, it's not. You have to actually cut programs. And every one of those programs has a constituency, every one of them. Believe me, I got the emails and the letters and the protests and the phone calls and all the rest. You got to decide what your priorities are, and you put your finger on it. 18, 19, $20 trillion in debt. Whatever number you want to use, it's outrageous. And this president has run up more debt in his time as president than every one of his predecessors combined. That's incredible. And so we need to make these hard choices. Now, you can't expect the Congress to make these hard choices without presidential leadership. You know, God bless them, members of Congress. You know, what they care about the most is, you know, taking care of their districts. And the best way for them to show that is like, oh, I brought this project home or that project home or this more money or that more money. They're not going to do this on their own. They need a president who's going to force them to do it. And, you know, I've had some experience of doing that in my state. And it's never easy, and I've done it with a Democratic legislature. And believe me, they don't wake up every morning trying to figure out like how to make my life easier. They don't wake up every morning and go, geez, I wonder what would make the governor happy today. You know, maybe we can do that. But you've got to be willing to govern as a one-termer. You've got to be willing to do that. With the nature of the problems that we have today, you better go into office thinking, all right, President of the United States, I got 4 years. And I got to make the decisions I have to make, and I can't worry about getting reelected. Because if you do, you're probably not worth reelecting in the first place. And you're not going to get the things done that you need to get done. You got to be bold. And that's going to be unpopular sometimes. And I may become president of the United States, and I may cut a program you really like. And then I'm going to come back to New Hampshire. And you're going to show up at one of these meetings and go, you know, you cut the XYZ program, and it means a lot to the people in my community. And I'm going to go, aren't you the $20 trillion debt guy? From the Loudon firehouse, right? You're the $20 trillion debt guy, and you're going to be the guy who's going to tell me, right? So, I know it won't happen. Right, so like, there you go. So here's the thing. They're going to be hard choices and they're going to be unpopular. And you got to be ready for it. And you got to have the confidence that comes with having gone through this before and gotten to the other side. You know, when you've never made these decisions before, you think that level of blowback, whether it comes from the public or the press or both, will be like the end of your life and the end of your career. It isn't. But you got to experience that to actually know it. And I've experienced it, and I know it. And so that's the way I would do it. And otherwise, anyone who tells you you can cut your way to the problem, though, by the way, is not telling you the truth. We also have to have significantly better economic growth in this country that brings in more revenue without raising taxes, because if we don't, you're never going to get anywhere near it. Last thing, I'm not going to solve the $20 trillion debt problem. It doesn't matter whether I'm there for 4 years or 8 years. I'm not going to solve it. And anybody who comes in here and tells you they're going to do that's not telling you the truth either. I'm going to make progress towards solving it. But it took us a long time to rack this up, and it's going to take us a long time to get it under some better measure of control. So let's not set unrealistic expectations for each other either, because that's when we disappoint each other and we get even more angry at government. So let me be realistic about it. That's the way it'll go. I'll make progress towards it, but I won't fix it completely, because it can't be fixed in 4 or 8 years in that way. Yes, sir, right there.
Oh, thank you. I was thinking of asking you an economic question, but I'm going to change to a psychology question.
All right.
We're probably right about the same age, and so we remember the 1970s when we sort of felt like we did now until we won a hockey game, right?
Yep.
So you're elected president. The economy's growing at 2%. I think the right track, wrong track number's the worst it's ever been, at like 70% wrong track. What does Christie do to say to America, we can be great again, we can be the leaders of the world across all these different topics and take the American psyche back to where it used to be?
Well, the first thing you do is not to think you're going to do that overnight, right? We can get here overnight. For me, I look at all the different stories that we have going on in America right now that are good stories. And I think to myself, if we started talking more about those, if we started valuing the work ethic again, like really started talking about it and talk about what the intrinsic value of work is, not what it is economically only, but what it is intrinsically too, to mean to get up every morning, get dressed, go to a place where you labor, you interact with people, and you come home with stories and experiences to share with your spouse and your children that help to put inside them the idea that there's something intrinsically valuable about work again. We need a president talking about those things again. And we haven't had that for a very long time. We have a president who says, you didn't build it, when talking about small businesses, rather than saying, man, you built it. And it means if you built it, you can build it, and you can, and you can. I would tell you that when I was growing up, my mother used to say to me all the time, like to the point of annoyance almost, Christopher, if you work hard enough, you can be anything you want to be. We need to start saying that again, but we have to be able to mean it. And so a president needs to be talking about the fact that what makes America, has always made America different, is the power of our ingenuity and the power of our work ethic. See, if you talk more about that, I think it gets people once again believing that their life really is in their own hands, that there isn't some predestiny, and there isn't somebody else who's going to hand them something to fix their problem, that it's within you to do it. And you need a president who's going to talk that way again. But to do that, you have to actually believe it and have experienced it. So, my great-grandfather and great-grandmother came to this country on a boat from Sicily. And when my great-grandmother got on that boat, she was 9 months pregnant. So she knew, when she decided to take that ticket and get on when their number got called, she knew she was going to give birth in the middle of the ocean. And I don't think this was like a luxury liner, as I've been told by my grandmother. This was not that. And she gave birth to my grandfather on that boat. My great-grandfather was a mason. He wanted to come to the United States to work and to build things, because he heard they were building lots of things here in this country. So he left his home and came here with my great-grandmother. And my grandfather was born on that boat. And I can tell you that I remember growing up, the only time I ever used to see my grandfather get really angry was when my mother would tease him. And she'd say, "You're nothing. You're not Italian, you're not American, you were born in the middle of the ocean. You're nothing." My grandfather used to get really hot. He'd get red in the face and he'd say, "Don't you say that in front of my grandson. I'm an American. They made me an American when I got to Ellis Island. I'm an American." The guy who was born in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean, his grandson is running for president of the United States, right? So we need to talk about those things again. You need a president who's going to talk about those things again as a point of pride because you've lived it. Because when my mother told me if I worked hard enough I could be anything I wanted to be, I hate to admit it, but she was right. She was right, because I'm here because of hard work. Everybody hits breaks here and there, good ones and bad ones. We all do. But the constant is hard work. I think if Americans really believed in their heart, in their gut again, that they would not be part of a rigged game, that they're not part of some kind of government plan who picks the winners and losers, but that their victory is within their grasp, and that what the government's going to try to do as best it can is stay out of your way. Level things off in the places where it needs to be leveled off, but stay out of your way and let your hard work do it. That's what we need to talk about again as a country. And that's not going to fix it overnight. It's not. But every success story that happens that can be put a spotlight on, that can be amplified, gives somebody else hope, right? So, you know, my friend Mark Zuckerberg comes up with an idea in his dorm room. And I watched a few weeks ago an interview of him 8 years ago on CNBC when he was 23 years old and Facebook was only a couple of years old. And he said, at that time they had 500,000 members. And he said, you know, my philosophy is we've got 500,000 members, and he goes, and I'm just trying to build something that'll be important and it'll be cool. 1.5 billion members now. I think he's reached his goal. He started in his dorm room. And his work and the ingenuity of his ideas and the people that he brought with him have built one of the greatest companies the country has ever seen, created enormous connectivity, enormous wealth. There's no other place in the world that could happen but here. And so we need to be talking about those things. When you think about, it's a chicken or the egg argument, right? How do you do it? Is it the success that comes first and then you talk about the success? Is it the talk that comes first and then it helps to create the success? I think it's both. You got to do both. You got to have some good things to talk about, but you can't stop talking about the greatness of the American people and the opportunity that this country gives to us. It's incredible. It's like nowhere else in the world. That's why my great-grandfather and great-grandmother got on that boat. And that's why Americans today need to be reminded the value of work and how work can solve every problem that we have if we do it earnestly and with great ideas. That's the kind of stuff I talk about as president, try to bring us around.
First of all, thank you for coming to Loudon.
Thank you.
As a breast cancer survivor, I am concerned with insurance and getting insurance later on. Now, right now, Hillary's campaign is that she's not going to let you Republicans tear down Obama's health care. What is your idea of a good health plan?
Well, let's start off with a few things. The big lie of the first term. If you like your doctor, you can keep him. If you like your health care plan, you can keep it, and premiums will go down. You didn't get to keep your doctor, you didn't get to keep your health plan, and health premiums have gone up a ton. So we got to remember where we are today. United Healthcare, the largest health insurer in this country, is now saying they're going to pull out of Obamacare because they're losing too much money. Why are they losing so much money? This was predictable, right? What are people doing? They're buying health insurance right before they know they're going to have a medical procedure. Then they're going to have the medical procedure, and then they drop the insurance, and they get the premium refunded. like this wasn't predictable? Right? So Hillary is going to stand up for Obamacare and say it's made the country better. And she's going to say X number of millions of people more are insured today than they were before. But most of those folks don't have insurance that they want, that they think serves them, or that over the long haul they can afford. And she hasn't gone after any of the cost drivers that make this country so expensive from a healthcare perspective. So my idea is this. You cannot have a federal national solution to this problem because each one of our 50 states is so different. Let's take our 2 states, right? So New Jersey and New Hampshire, about the same size physically. You got 1.3 million people here. I got 8.9 million people in New Jersey. A little bit different, right? Here, the access issue often for people is distance. How can I get to a place where I can find the specialist that I need? How far do I have to travel? What will that cost me? Is it feasible? In New Jersey, with 8.9 million people, my access problem in distance. I trip over a hospital in New Jersey every 4 miles. They're everywhere. You know, it's kind of like you guys in New Hampshire. Like hospitals for us, we trip over every 4 miles. You guys trip over state reps every 4 miles. Right? I mean, God bless them. But you know, I mean, every time I go in any place, I meet 3 current and 4 former state reps in New Hampshire. I bring this up to make a point. See, I want a state-based plan where the governors and the legislatures decide what's the best health care plan for New Hampshire. The reason I want that is because I think they can make the judgment best for what the people here need and want in terms of access and cost and all the rest of it, mandates and all the other things. What's most important to the people of New Hampshire? And the reason I bring up the state reps is because then you have the ability to influence it. If it's being decided here at the state level, you're going to see your state rep at the deli, at the pizza place. You're going to see him or her at the soccer field or the football field or the dry cleaners. And if it's not working, you can grab them and say, hey, you know, here's why it's not working. Try to do that with some bureaucrat in the Department of Health and Human Services in Washington, D.C. Never going to happen. Our states are demographically different, ethnically different, and all the different things that make up demographics influence what you need in healthcare. So why would we think there could be a national solution for New Jersey that's exactly the same as New Hampshire, that's exactly the same as Wyoming? Common sense tells you that doesn't work. So let's stop trying to force a size 10 foot into a size 7 shoe. Let's make the shoe for the foot. And let's trust the people who run our state, who we have the most access to make those decisions. Now, it shouldn't be optional for the states. The states have to make a decision. They can't punt. They've got to come up with a plan that gives the folks in their state access to care. But I don't think this should be made as a federal decision, as a practical matter. And let me say, philosophically, for those of you who believe in the Constitution, you know, the 10th Amendment to the Constitution says if there's not a plan, it's not delineated here in the Constitution, then that power goes back to the states. I've looked at the Constitution pretty carefully. I don't see health care in there. What's the federal government doing in this business? This should be the state's responsibility. And so it's not a responsibility they should be permitted to punt, but it's not something that Washington, D.C. should impose. Last thing just to think about is, when's the last time that we gave something to Washington and you went, hey, that's the way I want it done. Look at that. Man, they're on it, baby. That's good. I mean, so now we've turned over 1/7 of the economy to them, and we're going to go, why are they screwing it up? Well, you know why. Because they're not equipped to do this. Let them do the things they need to do. Let them secure our borders. Let them ensure for the national defense and security. Let them do the things that the Constitution laid out they should be doing. And healthcare wasn't one of them. So let's let the states do this. That's the way I would do it. And I think whether you're a breast cancer survivor or a colon cancer survivor, whether you're a person who has a parent with Alzheimer's, or whether you have a child with leukemia, what you want is the best possible health care as available and accessible to you as it can be as quickly as possible. So with all the things we say about the American health system, let's remember one thing. When people from any place else in the world get really sick, they come here. They come here. You know, Donald Trump talks about single payer. Ask the people in Canada. Why are the Canadian cancer patients coming to America to get treated in Boston? Why? Because they know they're going to get the best care here. So let's not throw the baby out with the bathwater. Because my mom was a breast cancer survivor, because she got quick and good treatment and the grace of God. And the combination is something that we shouldn't take for granted and that we should keep at the local level as close as we can so that we have the ability to change it if we need to. And that's the way I would deal with it. Now, my staff says I can take one more question, which means I will take two. And the reason for that is pretty simple. One, I always want to remind them who the boss is. Second, I want to inform all of you of what it's really like to run for president. Here's what it's really like to run for president. Every day, you're surrounded by people younger than you that tell you where to go and what to do every minute of the day. When I stand in the middle of all of you, it's the one time they can't. So I'm exerting my control here. So help me exert control with a few good questions. Ma'am, right there. And he's coming with the microphone right behind you.
Thank you, Governor. I recently saw a news article, and I apologize if it was inaccurate, I hope it's inaccurate, that professional sporting events, that the government is paying a considerable amount of money for our military to present arms, to present the colors at professional sporting events. And I think that's really offensive on a lot of levels for a lot of reasons, but I also think it's a symptom of an underlying problem between two aspects of our society, the government and private industry, where it's almost like they both consider the other to be predatory. If private industry sees a government contract, they see deep pockets and they push for everything that they can get. On the same note, there's taxes, and that you don't. How as Commander-in-Chief, I think that you would have the ability to affect people's attitudes. Do you know what I'm trying to ask you?
I do. Yeah, I do. Listen, first off, I read the same things, and there's been all kinds of rationalizations for it since then, but not denials. So we know it was happening. Shame on the sports teams for taking the money, right? You should honor our veterans at sporting events because in your heart you believe they deserve that honor, not because any government or any other entity paid you to do it. So that's the first problem. Second problem is, who's the genius in the government who came up with this program? Right? I mean, I got to tell you the truth, right? I have 60,000 or so people who work for me, the state of New Jersey. The most frightening thing about being governor is that 60,000 people have letterhead with my name on it, and I have no idea what they're doing with it, right? And so when you're at the top of these things, at times, and I've had these moments, where you say to yourself, like, who thought that was a good idea? And who approved that? And you know, one of the hardest things about handling the levers of government is the mix, as the guy or woman at the top, between putting your hands on everything and trying to make sure that you really control it versus not getting too deeply in the weeds, empowering good people and having them make decisions. It is the most difficult thing day to day in trying to deal with this. So the point you make is really important because you said as Commander-in-Chief, you should be able to influence people's attitudes. That's the most effective way to deal with something like that. Now, when you know about a specific program that is stupid and you get rid of it. That's the easy part. It's all the stupid programs you don't know about, right? That have been built up over years and years and years. That's where the attitude part comes in. I'm going to say to every one of my cabinet secretaries that in the first year, you must return to me 1 penny in stupidity for every dollar I send you. Now, that shouldn't be that hard, right? But in a $3+ trillion budget, we're talking real money if you return 1 penny of just dumb stuff. There's got to be at least 1 cent of the really dumb stuff, it's not only to get the money back, but it's also to put their mindset in a different place, to say they should be looking for that stuff. Not just accepting what other people tell you, but be looking for it. The leader has to instill that in the people who work for you. And it's one of the hardest things to do because you got to do it all the time, and sometimes you don't. So the important thing about having people around you who share that philosophy is at times they're going to remind the leader too. But you're absolutely right that there's something inherently disturbing about the whole idea. But I will tell you that what disturbs me the most about it is that the sports teams took the money. You know, because these sports teams seem to have their hands out all the time. All the time. And listen, I'm as big a sports fan as anybody. I go to games all the time. I root very hard for my teams, as many of you learned last winter, watching me root for the Dallas Cowboys, right? I got a lot of wonderful positive reaction to that. So I root for my teams, and I love sports, but you know what? Enough, okay? You guys are making a ton of money. You're paying the athletes a ton of money. I don't begrudge them any of that. It's a free enterprise system. It's popular. Football, baseball, basketball, hockey, it's popular. We love it. We pay tickets for it. But stop taking money from the government. Like, really. And to take money from the government to honor veterans? Come on. That's something you should do on the arm, you know? I mean, and so while I'm offended by the stupidity of the government program, I'm even more offended by men and women who, by virtue of their ownership of these teams, are leaders in the communities, feeling like that was okay. And we're talking about a relatively small amount of money compared to what these franchises are worth, right? So, you know, the Patriots are worth, what, $2 billion probably? You know, you're taking a few $100,000. Now, that's a lot of money, but compared to what, you know, Robert Kraft makes every year on the Patriots, really, was it worth it? Was it worth it for Jerry Jones to take that money in Dallas? Was it worth it for Woody Johnson to take that money for the Jets? You know, I'd say no, and that really offends me too. And it tells you something about their mindset as well, which, you know, needs to be straightened out. So it's an interesting issue, and thanks for bringing it up. All right. Now.
Thank you, Governor. Welcome back to New Hampshire. Good to see you. A couple times I've seen you out in the campaign trail.
Thank you.
And one of the things that's driving a lot of the debate among the voters in this election as to who to choose is the anger at what's going on in Washington, the way the system works, and how people feel that their voices are being drowned out by a few special interests. Do you have a plan to help empower the smaller donors so that they have a bigger voice over a handful of people? Like Ronald Reagan had a $200 tax credit for political donations, and one other candidate in this race has proposed that too. So would you have something in mind to help?
Yeah, definitely not that. I don't want public money going to political campaigns. Not a good idea. Listen, here's the thing. You asked two different kinds of questions, so I'll give you two different answers. First, let's get to the money part of this. The system now is just stupid. Think about what you're subjected to right now, right? You're seeing all kinds of ads on television now here in the Boston media market, WMUR, on cable here in New Hampshire, right? And almost every one of them is not from the candidate. Almost every one of them, you got to wait till the end to go, who? This ad was brought to you by Right to Rise. You know, you're like, I didn't know he was running. You know, who's Right to Rise? You know, I mean, right? You got to wait till the end to see who it is. Why? Because we set up campaign finance rules that say when you're running for President of the United States, the most powerful job in the world, where you're going to govern 330 million people as the sole elected executive, the most you can take in a campaign contribution is $2,700. $2,700, which wouldn't buy you 4 seconds on WMUR right now, let alone on some of the other networks. And so the system we have now forces candidates like me and all the other folks to go around $2,700 at a time to raise millions and millions of dollars. Impractical, so then a separate system gets set up. Here you go, you have these super PACs, and super PACs can't be associated with the campaign, can't coordinate with the campaign, and can take money from anybody, personal or corporate, in any amount. And depending on how it's organized, maybe it has to be disclosed, maybe it doesn't have to be disclosed. So you see ads, so let's say you see an ad from the group that supports me, which is called America Leads, right? So you see an ad from them, let's say you see that ad and you don't like it. So you come to the town hall meeting, you say, you know, I hope he calls on me. I got a couple of things to say. And I call on you, you go, by the way, that ad that said XXY, you know what? I don't like it. I say, I'm sorry, I can't comment on it. He said, what do you mean you can't comment? I said, well, I'm not allowed to coordinate with that group. I don't control what they do in support of me. And if I were to say I liked the ad or I didn't like the ad, that would be illegally sending a signal to them as to what I like and don't like, and that would be coordination, and that's against the law. Okay, so now millions and millions of dollars are being spent on all these candidates' behalves, and this is just what we need in politics, less accountability. Now, I could say all those ads, nothing to do with me. I have no idea. Talk to the guy who's running that thing. Who's that? I don't know. Go to the FEC website and try to figure it out. And all this is under the guise of campaign finance reform. Here's my idea. Let's stop the nonsense, okay? You're running for President of the United States. It's the biggest job in the world. Let anybody write me any check they want of any size. And the deal is, I got to disclose it within 24 hours on the internet. So you go on the website and you could see every 24 hours if you want, who's giving me money and how much. And if all of a sudden, let's say I were somebody who was opposed to oil exploration. I'm not, but let's say I was. And then you go on my website and I get $50 million from Exxon. And the next week I go, you know, this oil exploration idea is a really good idea. Let me tell you why. Well, that's what you're trying to get at, right? What you're trying to get at is, can I be bought? That's what the real question is, and that's what all this stuff's trying to get at. Can I be bought? Well, then, if I take money from whoever I can take money from in whatever amount, and then you see me change my positions based upon the money that I got in, you got a pretty good answer to your question. Let's stop kidding each other about this. And so we're going to keep money out of politics. Forget it. How are you supposed to communicate to 330 million people? How am I supposed to let you know what I think and what I believe? I can do this, but not 330 million times, right? I get tired, right? So that's the first thing. Let's be honest about the campaign finance system. And it's not an honest system right now because it's making candidates look stupid and act stupidly. And it doesn't make any sense. And it's not lessening the influence of money. There's always going to be influence of money. Let's be real about that too. It's going to influence things. The question is, can you become a professional ingrate? Because that's what you have to be. If you're in public office, you must be a professional ingrate. You must take people's money, and then when they come back to you and say, and I'd like you to do this, you say, oh, sorry, no, can't, because I don't agree with that, or it doesn't fit with my policy program, or it's illegal, or it's unethical. No, I can't do it. You have to be willing to do that. I've become really good at it. I'm like a complete professional ingrate now. I'm very proud of it, all right? That's what you have to do, and that's what you need to get from us. And in terms of increasing the voice of people in the process, let me tell you something. What do you think I'm doing here? Your voice is much louder than you're giving yourself credit for, because I haven't been here in New Hampshire 49 days this year because your voice doesn't matter. It's because your voice does matter. Man, if New Hampshire feels voiceless, imagine how Montana feels. Okay? I mean, seriously. Who's going to campaign in Montana? Right? You need the one stop quick in an airport hangar. Right? I've been in Montana. Thank you. Check. Next. Right? I'm here every week, man. And I'm talking to you guys at this level. That means your voice matters. February 9th, your voice is going to matter a lot. You know why? There's like 14 people running. You're going to send 10 of them home. You, all of you, are going to send 9, 10 of them home. And so your voice does matter. The way you make your voice matter is vote and get involved. Get involved. That's the way you do it. And just remember something. Every politician's in a race to win, not for the fun of it. Believe me, I'm not here for the book deal, for the Fox News show afterwards, because I need another title. That's not what I'm here for. I'm here to win. And that means you are the most powerful people in the world right now. Literally. Am I having fun? Do I look like I'm having fun? I can't hide it too much, so believe me, the moment I'm not having fun, you'll know. And so will the person on the other end. This is the point. The point is you in New Hampshire are literally, along with your compatriots in Iowa, the most powerful people in the world right now. So don't think about yourselves as not powerful. You are the most powerful people in the world, and you will execute that power and that authority at the voting booth on February 9th by winnowing this field down to a small number of people who will have the chance to hold the most powerful office the world has ever known. So I don't want to hear you bellyaching anymore about not being powerful, okay? You're powerful enough. All right. I'll tell you this. That was such a damn empowering question, I'm going to take another one. This guy right there. Yes, sir. I am really breaking the rules tonight. It's because I'm in a good mood. Where's the microphone? This poor son of a gun. Did they put the microphones away? They actually believed I was going to stop. Fooled them again. Thank you, Brittany.
Thank you, Governor Christie. As president, what would you do to reform a broken VA system? We have veterans in this country that are not receiving the benefits that they've earned. We're taking care of a lot of other people before our own veterans. We do not have a full VA hospital in New Hampshire, which we need. We have homeless veterans that are not being taken care of. I mean, it's ridiculous that a veteran has to wait weeks, months, years to be seen by a VA doctor, and we're paying bonuses to VA officials for doing a crappy job.
Yeah.
And the veterans are not getting the help that they deserve. I'd like to see what you would do to reform the VA system. And second, what is your plan for immigration reform to secure our border?
You see, this guy gives all you people a bad name. You know?
No,
I take
not
one
at
more
all.
question
These are
and
great people.
And he puts 2 in there. This is dirty pool now. But all right.
Nobody's raised these questions yet.
All right,
That's why I am.
I'm in a good mood tonight, so I'm going to give you both. All right? But you're not getting a third one, okay? You got those 2.
Fair enough.
All right, so we'll start with the veterans first. Here's the thing. It seems to me to be a fairly simple approach. That is, when people volunteered to be a part of our military, or for those who are still around who were drafted into our military and served, we made a promise to them. We said, we're going to take care of your health care for the rest of your life. It's a promise we made. Not with a qualifier. We made the promise. So here's the first thing. First thing I would do as president regarding veterans is to say that any veteran in this country who is honorably discharged takes their veterans card and they go to any health care provider, any place where they live, and they get their health care and they get it right then and we pay for it. Second, we've got to recognize the VA for what it is now. It's a hospital system. That's what the Veterans Administration is now. It's a hospital system. So with all due respect to the retired generals and admirals, who for the most part we've put in charge of the VA, we don't need another retired general or admiral in charge of the VA. I would go to the very best hospital executive in America and say to them, your country needs you for the next 2 years. Come in here and straighten out the VA hospital system and make it run efficiently and effectively like the hospital system that you run for your private sector employers. Because we can't, there's some people say get rid of the VA. We should not get rid of it because there is expertise inside the VA that is particular to treating men and women who've been in combat. This is everything from prosthetics, where the greatest advances on prosthetics have occurred in the VA system, to post-traumatic stress disorder and others that folks there are particularly well trained for this. Second, we have so many really compassionate people who work in the VA system, who love the vets and love to be a part of taking care of them, and they're being painted now with this broad brush of incompetence that the management has tarred them with. And it's not right, so we shouldn't get rid of the VA system, we should fix it. Because the expertise there is not something we should throw away. Our vets need that expertise. Let me tell you what I've done in New Jersey to let you know that I understand this. First is one of the things I'm proudest of during my time as governor is we set up a program called Vets for Warriors. And Vets for Warriors is a 24-hour-a-day, 7-day-a-week hotline that's at Rutgers University Hospital in Newark, New Jersey. And it is for vets who are having mental health issues. And the person they get on the other end of that phone is another veteran who's been trained in mental health training. Because lots of times vets are not ready to talk to mental health professionals. They're not prepared to do it and they're reluctant to do it. But they're always willing to talk to another vet who's been through the experience they've been through and understands it. This is a great program, and it's used by hundreds of thousands of folks over the course of time. For whatever reason, this past spring, the federal government, this was a partnership between the state of New Jersey and the Federal Department of Defense. And it was available nationwide, not just to people in New Jersey, any place in the country. For some reason, this spring, the Defense Department told us that they were no longer fund the program. And the program was going to close down on July 1st of this year. When I found out about this, we fought a little bit through our senators to try to get the money back, but it became clear we weren't going to be able to. And so I went to our state legislature, to the two Democratic leaders of our state legislature, Steve Sweeney and Vince Prieto. And they're good guys. We don't always agree on everything, but they're good guys. And I went to them, I said, listen, we can't let this happen. We have to fund it. It's $3.3 million a year to run it. I said, the people of New Jersey would want us to do this for the veterans in this country. And I have to give them great credit. They never hesitated for a minute. They said, Governor, you're absolutely right, let's do it. They put it in the budget. I signed the budget, and that program is still going on today. We could not have had our veterans with mental health problems dial that number and get a message saying this number's been disconnected. Too many veterans are committing suicide today. It's a national disgrace, and we have to do everything we can to lead them to the water of mental health treatment so that they can get themselves better. Second, there's a psychiatric hospital in the northern part of our state that we were closing because we no longer had a need for it. Some people said, let's sell it. It's on a nice piece of property, and there's some other private businesses on the property. I said, let's do something different. And you mentioned this, which is what raised it to my mind. We have a facility in the southern part of our state called Veterans Haven South, and it is a place for homeless veterans to go when they've reached bottom. It's a place for them to get fed, to get a warm place to sleep, and to get some treatment. So we turned the psychiatric hospital in the northern part of the state to Veterans Haven North. And so now in the northern part of the state, we have this place, and there's a private drug and alcohol treatment facility on the campus. We went to them and said, instead of charging you rent, we'll charge you $1 a year rent going forward if in return you'll treat any of the veterans who need drug and alcohol treatment at Veterans Haven North free of charge. They agreed. We need to take care of our veterans in ways that go beyond just the VA, but deal with the individual problems that have come with multiple deployments in awfully violent places that have sent these men and women back home with problems that are extraordinary. And we need to be ready to help them. And so in New Jersey, we've done those things. And I tell you them, one, because I'm proud of them, because our state has stepped up and done it, and it's been bipartisan. This has not been a partisan issue at all. Republicans and Democrats have worked together on this because we all feel the same way about it. And that's the same type of spirit I would want to bring to the way we take care of our veterans nationwide when I'm president, to reach across the aisle to the other party as well and say, this is something we all should be able to agree on, that our veterans deserve the very best treatment we can give them for what they've sacrificed for us. Now, the immigration question, as much as I wish I would have forgotten it, I haven't. Let me say this, five points on immigration. The first one, the first 4 or 5 all deal with securing the border. right? So issue number one is, we have to make sure that we put fencing or walling in the most populated places along the border. I am not a 2,000-mile wall fan. It's too expensive and it's not necessary. And by the way, in the last 18 months to 2 years, I've met twice now with President Peña Nieto of Mexico, once here in the US, once in Mexico. I gotta tell you, no matter how beautiful the wall is, no matter how beautiful the door is in the wall, he's not paying for the wall, okay? He's not paying for the wall. So let's get real about that, okay? He's not paying for the wall, no matter how nice we say it is. Second, we should be embedding FBI, DEA, and ATF agents in with our Border Patrol to have them help stop the flow of guns and drugs across the border. They're the ones who are best trained to do it. No offense to our Border Patrol agents, but FBI, DEA, and ATF agents are the ones who are best trained. Let's get them down there to stop some of the flow of illegal materials, both firearms and drugs, from coming across the border. Third, we've got to use technology. Drones with cameras and stationary cameras in the more remote parts of the border, so we can see what's going on a real-time basis and then deploy human resources to those places if we need to, but not have those human resources or other resources there permanently that are expensive and maybe not necessary. Let's use the technology we have. Fourth, every business in this country should have to use E-Verify. Let's remember why people are coming here from across the border. They're coming here to work. Coming here to work. Not like Hillary Clinton thinks. They're not coming here to vote. They're coming here to work, okay? So if that's the case, we have to once again enforce the idea that you can come here to work, but you must do so legally. And if you come here illegally, you cannot be employed. And if you are employed, that employer should be fined double whatever it is he made off that employee to make sure that the employer understands you cannot be breaking the law with impunity. So we need to require the use of E-Verify, and if they don't use it, we need to fine at double the cost of what they made off the employee. Fifth and final, to remember that depending upon what statistics you look at, 40% of the 11 to 12 million people who are here legally right now are not coming over the southern border. They're coming through our airports. They're here on visas. We invite them for a period of time. This would be like today, or let's say you invited some family over for Thanksgiving. Let's say you woke up this morning and you went for the first time to straighten out the guest room, and you went in there, and they're still here. You're like, hey man, I invited you for Thanksgiving. What are you doing here? This is what we're consistently allowing to happen on our borders. We're having people come in on student visas, on temporary work visas, on travel visas, tourist visas, and for a specific period of time, and then, we lose track of them and let them stay. I got a lot of interesting reaction when back in the summer I said, if Federal Express can track a package from the minute it leaves your doorstep till the minute it gets to the doorstep you want to arrive at, and everywhere in between, why is it that we can't keep track of these folks? Now, I didn't think that I had to explain to the media, who shares a common language with me, that this was what we commonly call in the English language an analogy. An analogy. My point being, if the technology exists to do that, we should be able to use technology to be able to track people coming here on visas. Now, then they said, this is a legitimate question I got asked on CNN. They said, Governor, does that mean you want to put chips in people's bodies when they come in through the airports? Do you want to put barcodes on people when they come in? No, no, no. You know why? Because you already have barcodes. You have 10 of them. They're called your fingerprints. I don't need to give you a new one. I'll use the one you already have. Every person who comes into this country on a visa should have to give a fingerprint. And that fingerprint should go on a database. And when you access services in this country as a person who's here on a visa, you should have to give your fingerprint. And when it pops up on the database that you have overstayed your welcome, that's the time to tap you on the shoulder and say, thank you for coming. We appreciate you being here. Now it's time to go home. Why shouldn't we be doing that? What's wrong with that? That was the deal when they walked in. You're here for a certain period of time, and then you go home. Do they think we didn't mean it? Well, of course they do. They think we don't mean it because we can't let them stay. We need to have a biometric system that tracks people and makes sure that they don't overstay their visas, because that's, according to some statistics, 40% of the problem. You don't need a chip or a barcode. We already got that covered. And until we do those 5 things, we should do nothing else. Because the American people don't trust us to do anything else. And they're right to not trust us to do anything else. President came in and said immigration was going to be a top priority. Democratic president with a filibuster-proof Democratic Congress. He did nothing. Nothing. Don't ever forget that. When the president had 2 years right at the beginning to do whatever he wanted to do with the Democratic Congress, he didn't get it done. And so the American people don't trust us to do any other monkeying around with the immigration system until we fix those problems. That's the way I would fix them. It's affordable, it's realistic, and it's effective. And if we do those things, we'll get a handle on our immigration situation in this country, and then we can go about dealing with the other problems that surround immigration, around employment and everything else. But until that time, we can't. Because why would the people give the government more power at a time when they can't even exercise the power that they have in a way that's effective and secures our borders? So that's what I would do exactly on immigration. All right. Two things to say to you before we go. Yeah, no chance, buddy. The guy back there totally blew it for you. I had my eye on you. I was thinking if you played it straight, I might go to you, but I can't now. I can't. Right, so you go over there. You can chat with him later about it. You know, we'll be fine. He's okay with it. They were good questions. First thing I want to say is thank you. I get lots of local press from New Jersey who come up and follow me up here when I'm campaigning. They want to dutifully and loyally report back home to the people as to what I'm up to up here. And so when I come back home, everybody always knows I've been here, and they ask, like, what's it like? They ask Mary Pat and I all the time, what's it like to campaign for president in New Hampshire? And what I tell them is that if they're cynical about politics, they need to come here. Because here you are on a Monday night, right after Thanksgiving, and look at all these people who are here tonight to come and listen to a candidate for president of the United States to try to help to make an informed choice come February 9th about who to vote for and who to support. And so, you know, I can't tell you how uplifting it is as a candidate to see this, because it means you care and that what we're saying matters. And that's really important in this process. And so I thank you for that. I'll tell you that one of my early town hall meetings, after it was over, a guy came up to me and he said to me, Governor, I agree with everything you said. You were great. I loved it. I agree with everything you said. And I said, well, thank you. And he goes, and I'm not voting for you. I said, wait a second, you agree with everything you're not voting for? He goes, yep, you forgot to do something. Because you forgot to do it, I'm not voting for you, but I wish you the best of luck. I'm like, well, what did I forget to do? He goes, don't worry about it. I said, no, that's not right. Don't worry about it. I am worried about it. I'd like to know what I forgot to do. And he said to me, okay, you didn't ask for the vote. He said, I sat there and listened to you. You had great ideas. I love your energy. I love your personality, but you didn't ask for my vote. And I said, you're right, sir. Can I have your vote? He goes, too late. I said, too late? To go, it hasn't been too late. It's the summer. We're not voting for months. Too late. And he said, listen. He said, I'll come back another time, and I'll see if you remember. And if you do, I'll give you another chance. And I said, well, thank you, sir. And he walked away. He's an older gentleman. He walked away, and he got about 5 steps away from me, and he turned around, looked over his shoulder at me, and he said, and by the way, son, that's the way we do it in New Hampshire. So, in honor of that gentleman who may be lurking among you, let there be no doubt tonight, okay? We're 68 days away. I'm asking for the vote. From each and every one of you, I'm asking for your vote. It's no longer get acquainted time, everybody. I don't want to be in your top 3 anymore. That's like everybody, they must teach that in school in New Hampshire, right? Every person I go to, well, you're in my top 3. I'm done with your top 3, everybody. It's time to get to business. I'm asking for the vote. I want your vote on February 9th. All right? Now, I want you to go to the website, and I want you to look at all the proposals. We put forward the most detailed proposals of any campaign in this primary. And I want you to go and look at them, because they matter. It's going to give you a blueprint as to where I'm going to try to head if you give me the honor of being president. But that's not the only way you can make this decision. See, because I can imagine that when Governor George W. Bush came up here in the fall of 1999, and he was campaigning for your vote, and he had a town hall meeting like this, and he took all the questions. I know the president, he'd take all comers. I guarantee you nobody asked him, Mr. Governor, what would you do if 4 airliners were hijacked? 2 of them flew into the World Trade Center, 1 of them flew into the Pentagon, and the other one was crashed by its passengers into a field in Shanksville, Pennsylvania, before it could get to Washington, D.C. to hit the White House or the Capitol. If you were president, what would you do? No one asked him. No one could imagine it. You couldn't imagine to ask. My point is that there's going to be things that are going to happen when I'm president that you can't anticipate. You couldn't possibly know, nor could I. And so every website in the world and every town hall with every question can't figure that part out. So how do you make the final decision? When I'm asking you for the vote, how do you make the final call? You got to know who I am. Because in the end, it's the person sitting behind that desk that's going to be called upon to make those calls. And it won't be in a plan. It won't be in a white paper. It's in here. So I'll end by telling you who I am. I'm the son of an Irish father and a Sicilian mother. No chuckling now. I see you chuckling. What that means is that at a very young age, I became expert at dispute resolution. This was a loud and raucous home. And my dad, who I know is watching tonight, we live stream all those things. We're live streaming, right, Ben? Yeah. Dad's at home on the Jersey Shore. Good evening, Dad. He's watching. He's 82 years old. And if he were here, and he is threatening to come, that threat is to both you and me. He's coming at some point. My father's coming. And if you met him, he's this gregarious, outgoing Irishman. He'd be hugging all of you. He'd be telling you embarrassing stories about when I was a kid. And he would be here longer than I'd be here. He's just one of those guys. He's incredibly outgoing and friendly and wonderful. But I've told him forever that despite all that, in the automobile of life, he was merely a passenger. Mom was the driver. Mom set the rules. Mom was judge, jury, and executioner. She liked that last part the best. And her biggest rule, we had lots of them, but the biggest rule in the house was there was no suffering in silence. Now, we always thought that that was because she wanted to take advantage of that rule more than anybody else, and she did. Whenever there was something on her mind, we heard it. Problem, heard it. Good thing, heard it. Complaint, heard those. Over and over again. Finally, to the point where I became a teenager and I felt empowered to push back a little bit, I'd say, Mom, like, enough already. I get it, stop. And she'd look at me, she'd go, no, Christopher, you're gonna hear it now. I need to get it off my chest. There'll be no deathbed confessions in this family. You're gonna hear it right now. And she did, over and over and over again. And that's the way she raised us. She taught us to be that way. And I said I had a Sicilian mother because 11 years ago, my mom was diagnosed with lung cancer. She had been a lifetime smoker, and on Valentine's Day of 2004, she was diagnosed with lung cancer. And for any of you who've been through this, you know that with lung cancer, it's really one of two ways. Either it goes very slowly or very quickly. Unfortunately for us with my mom, it went very quickly. I was U.S. attorney at the time, and by the end of April now, she got diagnosed on Valentine's Day. By the end of April of 2004, I was at the U.S. Attorney's National Conference in San Diego. And I got a call from my younger brother, and he said, they put Mom back in the hospital. She's real bad off, and the doctors say, if you ever want to see her again, you need to come home now. And so I got on a red-eye flight that night, flew home from San Diego, landed at Newark Airport the next morning, got in my car, and drove to the hospital. When I got there, they had already started to give her morphine. And for those who've been through this with friends or relatives, you know that's the end. They're just trying to make them comfortable. And so that means she was kind of sleeping. She was in and out of things. So I sat there for a while next to her, and then she finally woke up. And it was typical of my mother. Now, she had not seen me for a week. She said to me, what day is it? I said, well, good morning, Mom. Good to be back. My trip was fine. Glad to see you're doing well. It's Friday. She said, what time is it? She said, it's 9. I said, it's 9:30 in the morning. She said, go to work. I said to her, hey, Mom, I just flew all the way across the country to come and see you. I'm not going to work today. I'm taking today off. I'm going to stay here with you. And she said to me, Christopher, it is a work day. Go to work. I said, Mom, like, what, are you afraid you're not getting your taxpayers' money's worth? Like, I'll make up the time. Don't worry about it. I'm going to be here with you today. And she reached over, and she grabbed my hand, and she said, Christopher, go to work. It's where you belong. There's nothing left unsaid between us. Except for the birth of our 4 children, it was the single most powerful moment of my life. My mother was dying, and she was giving me permission to let her go. And as I sat there, what I realized was that this was the end of what she had predicted her whole life. Right? There were no deathbed confessions. She had said it all already, and so had I. I knew every complaint and every shortcoming. We had shared every joy that you could share. I knew she loved me, and she knew that I loved her. And so at that moment, I thought to myself, damn, she's right again. And so I did as I was told. I got up and I kissed her on the forehead and I said, okay, Mom, I'm going to work. And she said, good boy. And I got up and I left. And 3 hours later, she went into a coma. And 3 days later, she died. And we never spoke again. It was the last conversation we ever had. And I have absolutely no regret, because I lived my life the way she taught me. Say what you believe and what you feel. Don't hold it back. Don't wait for something. Do it. And so, you know, since Trump's gotten in the race, I'm now only the 2nd most psychoanalyzed candidate in the race. But second's not bad. And you know, when I say things like get the hell off the beach or sit down and shut up, people are going, why is he saying that? Why is he angry? What's he doing? What's inside him? What's he thinking? Why does he say those things? Now, tonight, you know, it's her. It's her. This is how I was raised. To say what you believed and to say it without any varnish on it. To be who you are and have no regrets. And so I know that if my mom were still alive, to see this circus that my life has become, she'd have a number of things to say, but I know 2 things for sure. First one is she'd say, so, you're running for president of the United States, Mr. Big Shot. She'd look at me and say, I changed your diaper. I know who you are, buddy. Don't you act big with me. My mother would want me to keep my feet on the ground and my head on my shoulders. And the second thing I know she'd say is, all right, if you're going to do this, if you're going to ask these people to give you more trust than they give to anyone other than their immediate family, and you better tell them everything. You better tell them exactly how you feel, exactly who you are, and exactly what you believe. Because in a trusting relationship, Christopher, that's what we do. And so this campaign is a tribute to her. It's a tribute to the way she raised me. Not perfect, not close, but I am who I am. And I'm going to be who I am for every day that you're going to know me. And it seems to me that given where our country is right now and where we want to head, that maybe it's time to have somebody back in the Oval Office who will just tell you exactly what they think and not be worried every minute of the time whether that was going to poll well or whether that was going to be something that you wanted to hear. And so I'll just tell you that I want to be President of the United States. I'm not here for any other reason. I'm not one of these guys who's going to wander around New Hampshire and go, oh, I wish it were different. It's too hard. I wish it were better. I wish it was more joyful. I wish it was something. I'm not one of those guys who's going to sit here and moan and complain to you. I want to be president because I think I can help make this country a better place. I want to be president because I believe in my heart that I can make the decisions that need to be made to put our country on a better path. I want to be president because I love this country, and I believe it's been extraordinary to me, and I want to give something back. So I said when I was running for governor of New Jersey that you'd never hear me complain about being governor, and I haven't. It's been a great job. I love every minute of it. And it's got challenges and lots of challenges. But you know what? I've enjoyed every minute of it, and I'll enjoy every minute that I'm privileged to have it. And I've never complained about it. I'm not going to complain now. And I'm never going to complain about being president. You give me the opportunity to do this, I'm going to work as hard as I can for you. I'm going to always remember who sent me there. And I'm going to do the very best I can every day, and you're going to hear from me exactly what I feel and what I believe. And if that's what you're looking for in a president, then you can stop this top 3 business, all right? You can vote for me on February 9th. I hope you will. Thank you all very much for coming tonight. I appreciate it.
Tell me how to live.